Getting a haircut. Getting a haircut.
Big change.
That's awesome. Really good job.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's Charlton. Okay, I got a haircut. Did a really good job, man. But my family, wife and kids are laughing at my eyebrows because right after I got out of the chair, I said, "Can you trim the eyebrows?" And she did, and she just went vroom, vroom, with the clippers with the guard on. I think a number 3, and I just wasn't used to that. Normally they use the comb, and kind of go slow. I mean, when it happened, I was like, "Whoa, what was that?" I felt like it was a big chunk came off. I mean, it's all right, but they're definitely a little tight there, man. Little David Bowie look going on. All right, so okay. Lot to cover, and it's gonna be sloppy and messy, and that's just life, dude. I want to play this for you, though. I want to play this movie. This movie is a pretty good movie. I like Nicolas Cage a lot. I really do. I mean, this movie's fair. It's pretty good, but this part always stuck with me the moment it happened, and it just, to me, it applies to so much of life. In the real world. And this is how things happen, man. And I'm sorry to say, but that's just, I mean, so he's an arms dealer, an illegal arms dealer, Nicolas Cage. He plays an illegal Russian arms dealer. It's loosely based on a true character. And this is his uncle, I believe, and it's the fall of the end of the Cold War, the fall of the Cold War, fall of the Soviet Union. This is a weapons depot overseen by a Russian official who's his relative. And now since the Soviet Union has collapsed, there's all these weapons that have no home, and he can sell them illegally and so forth. So, but he's just telling him, your supplies are majorly deleted. He's being somewhat facetious and saying you need to order more and you need to restock, because he's going to sell them illegally. But his uncle is scared, and he's like, "Well, what about when they come, and like UN inspectors or whatever?" And his reply has always stuck to me because this is how things go, man. Let me just play it for you. Hopefully that I set that up well enough.
Oh, we'll work it down. What happens then? We'll cut them in.
All right, dude. That's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so that when somebody comes to somebody who is, an inspector, whatever, to expose you, what do? You make them a partner. You cut them in, man. And that happens in life everywhere, dude. And you can just keep going because the next person that comes to expose the corruption, they just cut them in.
Your stocks are dangerously depleted, Dimitri. You should order more from the factory. Someone will work it down. What happens then? We'll cut them in.
All right, dude. Just wanted to show you that. Something to keep in mind. Okay, so Doug Poppa has got 2 articles out, over at the Baltimore Post-Examiner. I like Doug Poppa a lot. Think he's a dead-on dude. I think he's relentless, and he's one of the good guys. Okay, and in these articles, I'm not going to go through them. There's a ton in here. I'm probably going to focus on this one, which was actually on the 14th, and there was another one that dropped on, I think, the 16th. First off, okay. First off. Doug Poppa believes the Paddock was the lone shooter, okay? I don't think that's in any dispute whatsoever. I challenge anybody to find Doug Poppa at this stage saying anything other than that, okay? And these articles have nothing to do with challenging the fact that there was one shooter up there, that it was Stephen Paddock, and he's not necessarily getting into motives. But he, at this stage, and I think much of the time, he always believed that, but he needed answers to his questions, and he still needs answers to his questions here, but not about who's the shooter. He still here completely believes, and as do I, okay? One shooter, Stephen Paddock, up in that hotel room, 135, 134. So that's just not in dispute. I dare anybody try to get Doug Poppa saying that anything different. I'm not like in the mind of Doug Poppa. Not Doug Poppa. I don't know what Doug Poppa would think of me. I have no idea. He might think I'm a total goofball. He might think I'm a little naive, or I don't know. Or he might think I'm okay. And I'm harmless. Whatever. But that I'm almost positive, dude. Positive of. So. But while I'm on that point, all right, I want to go through a few scenarios here, all right, and that basically different scenarios and as it relates to the hotel casino, all right, and very quick, okay, I can tell you unequivocally that had this been something with helicopters, people in helicopters shooting down on the crowd, if that was the case. That would probably be the best case scenario in terms of the legal liability of the hotel. That would probably be the best case scenario. Best case, because in that situation, the hotel casino has zero legal liability. Okay, they're not responsible at all at that point. All right, so in fact, and if that was the case, if there was any truth to that, and there isn't, there's none, zero. Then the hotel would be 100% behind proving that, but it's ludicrous. So that's one. Number two, if there was two shooters in the room, okay, and I'm willing. I am constantly like, wow, maybe I was wrong, and I get sucked back in again, and I think but we're all invested in what we've claimed, and that's just human nature. So, but if there's two shooters up there, two shooters equals basically conspiracy. That's a fact. That's just definition. Two shooters equals conspiracy, which ultimately probably means domestic terrorism, right? Which ultimately means government bailout for the hotel casino. So, in that situation, that would actually be good for the hotel. Okay, good for the hotel in terms of their legal liability, because half of the legal liability, or a big chunk of the legal liability, would then be, be taken care of by the government coming in based on the law that was passed after September 11th. That anytime something is categorized as terrorism, they get assistance. And it just would. I mean, okay, so two shooters is actually something that would be good for the hotel. In fact, it seemed like, maybe that's the direction this was going with the dude who sold him the armored piercing bullets, and it seemed like maybe, somebody had connections in the Justice Department and they were trying to press for that, and trying to make that connection, but it's just not there, right? But two shooters equals conspiracy equals domestic terrorism. Two shooters means domestic terrorism. If there's two shooters up there, what's the motive? It has to be domestic terrorism. That means government bailout. That means it's good for the hotel casino. Now, okay. The worst case scenario, actually, if it was an employee of the hotel, okay, of the hotel casino, that isn't even the worst case scenario. That isn't. That's just some crazy, deranged, disgruntled employee who just goes berserk. All right, and you can't even ascribe a reason to that. Like, not necessarily, you can't necessarily ascribe a reason to what happened anyways, because it's just psychotic, sadistic stuff. But if it was an employee, that actually is not the worst case scenario. What happened is pretty much the worst case scenario, where you have somebody who's categorized as basically a high roller gambler, frequent gambler, who has clocked some fairly significant losses over the last year or so, and potentially, according to some accounts, there's some knowledge of maybe knowledge that he was bringing up suspicious suitcases, and according to the brother-in-law of Jesus Campos, they knew he was bringing up guns, according to that individual, and we don't know if that's true or not, and what his reasons for saying that would be. So that's the worst case scenario, man. It is for the hotel casino. All right, why? I used to think that it was just harmless harmless, reasons why people come up with these theories, and it still very well may be, of just wanting to grow their channel and get views and get subs and stuff like that. But I'm beginning to wonder. I'm beginning to wonder about the reasons why. So basically, every theory out there is better for the hotel, than what actually happened. Okay, and I will say, in terms of that last statement, the overwhelming majority of people making videos are just captivated by the story. They want to know what it is, and they focus in on something, and they make videos about it. They look into it, investigate it, if you want to call it that. And but recently I'm beginning to wonder about a few, about why they seem to be want to promote ideas, theories that are basically better for the hotel, good for the hotel. Okay. So, I'm not going to go into this too much. I'm not. He focuses on this and this. To go back to my original point, Doug Poppa is still, he's questioning the response and what we're being told after the fact, after what happened. He's not questioning whether or not what happened in that room was, one person shooting out of the hotel. He believes that. I'm just telling you, he does. And but this is examining some of the actions and some of the explanations given by the hotel staff. He seems to focus in on a few people here. He's suggesting that maybe some of their actions are negligent. He's saying that basically that Jesus Campos's actions seem a little on the negligent side. The fact that he goes to a door. Let me just quickly. I'm going to keep going. So he goes to the stairwell door. And it's locked, right, and he can't get up. So then he goes up to the 32nd floor, then goes down to the, center core to take the elevator down to 32, and then come down 100 hallway. Basically saying as soon as he saw that doorway was, he couldn't get in it, he should have been calling somebody. That's a major violation, safety violation, fire safety violation. If that thing's plugged and, there's a fire, you could have, hundreds of people who can't get out, and that's just major violation in terms of hotel, operations, big time, and he should have called somebody immediately. Second time, when he goes to the door and he sees that there's a bracket on there, and he was basically saying that in this day and age of terrorism, particularly, with Vegas being a target, you would think that, the hotel security would have a mindset that would be prepared or be thinking on that level. And why he didn't, that didn't immediately set off some flags and call somebody and be like, somebody's bracketed this door. Maybe something's going on. That was another point. He also seems to, because this person here, in fact, he puts her picture here, the security officer Liliana Rodriguez, because she's in the dispatch office of the hotel, and a lot of the communication is with her. I don't know exactly what her rank is within the security of the hotel, but he focuses on her communication. And one of the things, I think, Doug Poppa's a little cryptic himself, and I'm cryptic, definitely. And everybody has their reasons for not wanting to just flat out say things, But I think if I could just sort of paraphrase and be so bold as to suggest what Doug Poppa's trying to say here is that it seems odd. I think he's saying it seems odd that the security office doesn't seem to be aware when Las Vegas Metro shows up that the shooter is up on the 32nd floor, and that's where it's coming from, and that is known. Because basically from the audio, from, even though they're saying he got hit, and that the story is that he got hit, and they're saying that he got hit, and that according to them, Campos said he got hit with the pellet, which is odd, and Doug Poppa brings that up at the very end of this. He sort of summarizes some of the things that bother him about this, this timeline and story. That's one of them. Like, does that bother anybody else, that the fact that he thought he was hit by a pellet? Yes, it does. It's crazy. But, but what my point is that, based on, I'm going to bring it up, and based on like this audio here.
Call the police. Someone's firing a gun up here. Someone's firing a rifle on the 32nd floor down the hallway. Copy. Hey, it's on 32. Please get out of the way. Steven, make sure you're out of the way. Copy.
Base to 106 Steven. Security wants to know if you know a room.
It's at the end of the hallway. I can't tell you what room. He looked like he fired down the hallway when I got close to the door.
Copy. So it's down to 100 the hallway, correct?
Security's up here. Where you at? 100 hallway. Don't go.
Okay, so that's obviously during the firing of the night. That's between 10:05 and 10:16, whatever it is. You clearly hear automatic fire in the audio. That's being relayed to security dispatch. How it is that the security dispatch people within the office there seem slightly, ambiguous about where it's coming from when Las Vegas Metro Police shows up, and that, because there's this Las Vegas Metro actually offers, is it coming from Luxor? And I think Doug Poppa deduces that basically that, people over at the Luxor, they heard it. They heard the shooting out of the building from the Mandalay Bay, so they thought it was coming from there. But that really is irrelevant, because inside the security office, they should have kind of known from this and from that it was right upstairs. And why weren't they just saying that? I think that's what he was trying to say. I'm about to lose memory here in a second. So he goes on, to basically pick apart other things. I mean, this whole article it says, what entry was logged at 9:59 by Mandalay Bay security night of Las Vegas massacre. And part of the reason for that headline is because throughout this, we were told that the timeline changed many times. And in fact, this is difficult to tell, but she actually even mentions that, Liliana Rodriguez, in here. She basically says the call is marked 9:59. So it says the police officer asked him what, and that was at 9:30. Let me back up. Okay, so security officer Rodriguez responds, yeah, the initial call was, one of the first calls was unintelligible, got shot, and he was bleeding, and that's when unintelligible, it was just a pellet, and he was fine. The police officer asked, and that was at 9:30? And security officer Rodriguez, this is at 11:50 p.m. at this point. That was like 9, the call was marked 9:59. Okay. In the Las Vegas Metro Police Department report for all this, excuse me, there's no document or no logged entry for 9:59. That's basically what Poppa is indicating here. And that's not the only time that 9:59 came up, because in the timeline that changed again and again early on in this, between Las Vegas Metro and between the hotel, that time came up. And basically, first, I don't want to go through all the different gyrations of the timeline. They ended up with 9:59 that Jesus Campos had gotten to the stairwell, had gotten to the locked, the barricaded door at 9:59. I think that's what the 9. But their explanation was that they the explanation was that info after the fact, made it very apparent to them that that's the time he got there. That stuff they didn't know before. This is why they didn't realize, this is why their timeline was messed up the first time. But info after the fact made it absolutely sure for them that he arrived at that door at 9:59. And that's explained here in Doug Poppa's piece. And what Doug Poppa's saying that is that in Las Vegas Metro's final report, there's nothing about 9:59. There's no indication, no logged entry, no nothing. So... And they're saying, their explanation of how they came up with 9:59 is because they have manual reports. That's where they got it, and it was the information that they had after the fact. And he's saying, but it's not in the final report. It's missing. And he's saying, why is that missing? And he's saying that his suspicious nature says it has something to do with the pending litigation. So it says, initially we were told that Campos was shot as a result of approaching Paddock's suite as he was firing into the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival, and that diverted Paddock's attention. Paddock then shot Campos through the door and quit firing into the crowd. Campos was called a hero. That was the first one. Okay, let me back up. Let me redo that and just calm down. Initially, we were told that Campos was shot as a result of approaching Paddock's suite as he was firing into the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival, and that diverted Paddock's attention. Paddock then shot Campos through the door and quit firing into the crowd. Campos was called a hero. That was the first story. Then Lombardo said that Campos was shot at 9:59, and the shooting on the crowd started 6 minutes later. And that's when people were like freaking out. Like, well, if he shot at Campos 6 minutes before he started shooting the crowd, then why didn't they, alert police earlier? And so then they changed. They said, no way. They changed that. Once again, that changed, and Campos was shot at about the same time that Paddock opened fire onto the concert venue, which fit the statement that MGM Resorts International put out. On October 20th, 2017, Lombardo said that Campos arrived near Paddock's suite at 9:59, but that he was not shot then. Lombardo explained that the 9:59 p.m. time came from human entry in a security log. Okay, I still stand by the time of 9:59. It wasn't inaccurate when I provided it to you. The circumstances associated with it are inaccurate, Lombardo said. MGM Resorts International said that the time was derived from Mandalay report manually created after the fact without the benefit of information we now have. We are now confident that the time stated in this report is not accurate. But again, in the final Las Vegas Metro report, there's nothing there's no log entry, there's no manually created after the fact. There's no manual entry in their final report. Okay, so let me sum up here, and then just end this. Hopefully you stay with me if you want. If you didn't, I don't know. All right, okay, let me wrap this up, man. So, as far as that 9:59 time, which I sort of mangled, but hopefully you stayed with me. Poppa continues, something obviously, so what was logged in at 9:59 on that night of October 1, 2017? Poppa continues, something obviously was, my suspicious by nature mind makes me think it's something that MGMRI doesn't want to make public, most likely because of the pending civil litigation. Then he goes on to talk about the fact that, again, that Campos arriving at that doorway at 9:59, had he called in immediately right then, that could have changed the outcome of things and started the ball rolling. Then he continues to ask questions in this as he sort of summarizes things. What was the active shooter call at the Luxor that was occurring at the same time that Campos was shot that the security officer referred to? It's possible that it could have been Luxor guests hearing Paddock's gunfire from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay as he was firing out the broken windows. I agree. And that's just, I touched on that earlier. If that was the case, how could both Campos's radio call and a call from somebody at the Luxor using a telephone be coming in at the same time Campos was calling in over the radio? If that's indeed what happened. Something just doesn't fit here. If Campos called in that shots were coming from 32-135 at the same time Paddock opened fire at 10:05 p.m., then why was there so much confusion that night about where the gunfire was originating from? And he's going from the body cam of the Las Vegas Metro Police Department that's inside the security office, the security dispatch office of the hotel. He's saying that they're all like confused, like where it was coming from, and he's saying, why were they so confused if, just like the audio I played you? And I agree. That's a question I have. And, yeah. So why does, from watching the videos, there appears to be uncertainty with security officers inside the surveillance room about what not only happened with Campos, but with other events that were also occurring that night. All right. Then he goes on to say, unless MGM-RI drastically changed their investigative techniques, there is no doubt that all Mandalay Bay Hotel security personnel that were involved in the event of October 1, at a minimum, completed company voluntary statements prior to the police interviewing them and were more than likely interviewed by MGM-RI corporate investigators prior to being interviewed by the Las Vegas Metro Police Department. One final thought that occurred to me that never occurred to me until just last night. Just a thought, and it's just Paddock up there, believe me. And like I already went through the scenarios. This is the worst case scenario for the hotel. So anything else would be, would have been proven by now if it was anything else, because it would have been better for the hotel. And everything after that happened, that's what I think is the question, about how it's being told, for obvious reasons. So, but I mean, just the two computers. I mean, I had an epiphany during, way long ago about that. Like the reason he had two computers and why his setup was so amateurish, because it was him, because he's an amateur. The two computers in the two different suites was so that he could keep an eye on the hallway when he was in one or the other suite. That's why he had the two setups. So that when he was in 134, he could keep an eye on the hallway from 134 when he was in that room. So he could go to that computer and see if there was somebody down the hallway. Or if he was in 135 and, he wanted to keep an eye on the hallway, then he would go to the computer that was in 135 to keep an eye on the hallway. That's why he had to have the two setups, because it's just one dude. But what occurred to me last night is, I think he had the camera set up. Because he was, I don't think he never thought he was going to get out of there. He didn't. It was a suicide mission. It was. So what were the cameras for? The cameras were because I think Paddock knew that the hotel knew about him. And that he knew they would respond quickly because they knew about him. And that's why he had the cameras, is because he knew he wanted to be ready. Because not for a half hour into it, when they finally figured out who it was, He surmised in his own head they would know instantly that it was him, and that's why he needed the cameras. And that was my thought last night. It's just an idea. I don't know that for sure. I'm not in Stephen Paddock's head, but that was my idea. And that's the end of this video. All right, thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below, and I will see you in the next video. Later, man.